Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to today's news roundup. I've got 4 stories for you today and then a couple of good news ones towards the end of the video as usual. Kicking us off then is the news that Charles Leclerc has said that he would be happy if Sebastian Vettel remained his teammate for next season and that the relationship between the two drivers is better than some people make out. Now, as I'm sure you are all very aware by now, Vettel's contract with the Scuderia runs out at the end of this year, and although both parties appear to be keen on extending that deal, reports, or probably more likely rumours, claimed last week that Vettel had rejected the first offer made to him by Ferrari. The rumours alleged that Seb was unhappy with the salary offered, with him apparently labelling the offer as a joke. It must be stressed at this point that there has been no word on that rumour from either Vettel or Ferrari, probably unsurprisingly, but the reports also went as far as to claim that as a result of that rejection, Ferrari were lining up 3 possible options. Prepare to be shocked to your very core. Those 3 options allegedly are Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz and Antonio Giovinazzi. Earth-shattering, I know. But despite the constant rumours around Vettel's future and their, let's say, moments on track last year, Leclerc insists he would be happy if Seb stuck around for at least another season, but is ready to adapt if somebody else is sat alongside him. I'm very happy with Seb. I think it was good even though we had a few problems on track like in Brazil or things like this. I think it has always been a good relationship even though from the outside it was probably not seen as it was. So I'll be happy to keep him, but I will respect the decision for whoever is next to me. And at the end, it is my job to adapt to the person next to me, and you can always learn from whoever is your teammate. So Leclerc would be happy with Vettel as a teammate again next year, and I still think that is the way Ferrari will choose to go, by the way. With all the uncertainty out there and all the arguing going on about cost-saving measures at the moment, I get the feeling that many teams will stick with what they've got right now, essentially because they're going to have enough to deal with without having to find and bed in new drivers for 2021. I suppose it is almost a case of better the devil you know at the moment. Of course, that will only be the case if those drivers remain financially viable for a team, and Leclerc also had his say on whether or not he would take a pay cut if the team needed him to do so. I think it is the right thing to do considering this particular moment and considering all the difficulties that we are all experiencing. We are going to need to adapt to the circumstances. I think it's fair to say short but sweet there from Charles, and it is good to see that he and several other drivers as well are willing to do what they can to help their teams through this current crisis. Difficult times for everybody, and it's important that all areas of every team are doing their bit to help where they can. We'll move on for now though, but there will be more on Leclerc later in this video. Right then, time for the latest on any potential 2020 season. I mean, that is the dominating news story right now, understandably. But it was confirmed on Friday that the Hungarian Grand Prix would have to be held behind closed doors if it goes ahead this summer. It has already been announced that the potential races at the Red Bull Ring and Silverstone would have to be held behind closed doors, and the Hungaroring has now joined that list. Now, this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise to anybody really, as Formula One bosses had already made it clear that the early races would not be able to have fans packing out the grandstands. There was some doubt cast on whether or not the race in Hungary could go ahead this year, after the Hungarian government announced earlier this week that any event involving more than 500 spectators would be banned until August 15th at the earliest. Of course, if a race were to go ahead behind closed doors, F1 would not be in breach of that ruling, and a statement from circuit officials confirmed that as a result of the government's decision, no fans will be able to attend this year's Grand Prix. The Hungaroring team has been waiting until the very end and is still working with the international rights holder, but it has now become clear that we cannot hold the Hungarian Grand Prix in front of spectators despite all our efforts. In recent weeks, we have been constantly voicing that we are open to any solution in order to host the Grand Prix again this year, and it became clear yesterday that all this is only possible behind closed gates. We will continue to work with the international promoter to find the best possible solution. It was also confirmed along with that statement that ticket holders have the option to either transfer their booking to next year's event or get themselves a full refund. And if you are one of those spectators, you can find more information over on the official F1 website. Meanwhile, Racing Point's team principal Otmar Safnauer says that he believes that getting the 2020 season underway in Austria this July is actually plausible. In case you missed it on Monday, Formula One announced that the current plan was for the season to start at the Red Bull Ring on July 5th as originally planned, with races in Europe filling the early slots on any revised calendar. If you are interested, I did go over those plans in more detail during a video on Monday, which you can catch up on by clicking on the link on screen now or at the end of this roundup. Back to Otmar though, and as well as backing F1's plans as plausible, he also added that he expects teams will be ready to go racing once the season gets the green light. In an interview with CNN, he said, "If Austria do a very good job as a country to contain the spread of the virus into July, and there is testing available for all of the Formula 1 employees or participants to actually test, I think it is plausible to put on a race in early July. If by sometime in June we say yes, it's on, it's happening, we are safe to go, I think all the teams will be able to make it, no problem." On top of that, local authorities and government in Styria have said that they are welcome to hosting the race in July and that they are willing to run more than one race at the circuit if necessary, and that is something that Ross Brawn has said would be an appealing prospect. One of the logistical challenges is getting everyone tested and cleared to enter the paddock and enter the racing environment. And I think once we do that, it is very attractive to keep everyone in that environment, within that kind of biosphere that we want to create for another race. It is challenging to find the right races early on where we can control the environment. Austria fits that bill very well. It's got a local airport right next to the circuit where people can charter planes into. It is not too close to a metropolis. It has a great infrastructure around it. There will be no motorhomes, but there will be full catering facilities laid on that the circuit has. We can basically contain everyone within that environment. Therefore, once we are there, it is appealing to have another race the following week. Now, of course, we are only just into May and things can change very rapidly, but for the moment at least, there seems to be a lot of positivity around the idea that F1 could get the 2020 season going as currently planned at the start of July. As I say though, this virus has already shown us just how quickly things can change, and so as a fan, I'm not going to get too excited just yet. Next up, Sebastian Vettel and Esteban Ocon have both said that they believe a shorter Formula 1 season would still result in any champion being a worthy champion. There has been a lot of talk over the last few weeks about the minimum number of races needed for a World Championship to be awarded. That is 8 in case you didn't know, and whether or not a season as short as that would mean that a World Championship triumph would be looked at any differently by fans, drivers or even the history books. But Vettel is clear in his belief that regardless of the number of races that take place across any given season, championship success would not be devalued. Obviously, we had less races in the past and more races today, but I don't think it makes a big difference. A season is the season whether it's 10, 15, 20 or 25 races. You still have to be the one who is the most consistent. With less races, every race is more important, but in the end, the championship will still be the championship. It is still a long way, and a single race weekend is a long way. And Ocon echoed those words from Seb, but issued a word of warning as well that fewer races mean there is less room for mistakes to be made. The more we can do, the better it would be for a championship, but I agree that for a good 10 races or more, if we can do that, it would still be valid. There are enough races, and it is the same for everyone to determine who is the best and who's not in the end. There's not going to be any joker to play. There's no places to DNF. It is going to be very important to finish all the races, score all the points available and get it to the finish. This is actually quite an interesting topic of conversation. Once upon a time in F1, specifically the first World Championship season back in 1950, there were just 7 races on the calendar and not everybody took part in the Indy 500. So, for example, eventual world champion Giuseppe Farina actually only took part in 6 Grand Prix. Compare that to 2019, and Lewis Hamilton won the title having taken part in 21 races, and Michael Schumacher secured his 7th title across an 18-race season. Now, I can understand the question as things have come a long way in F1 since 1950. The norm now, obviously ignoring 2020 for the moment, is for 20 plus races to make up a World Championship season. So dropping to as few as 8 might just make people view that champion a little bit differently. But here's the thing in my view. Whether a champion was crowned in a 7-race season, an 8-race season, a 15-race season, or a 52-race season, what a year that would be, by the way, the record books are still going to list that driver as a Formula 1 world champion. Yes, perhaps there will still be an asterisk next to the name of the 2020 world champion, but that, again for me anyway, would not take away from their achievement. Ultimately, in order to win that title, even across fewer races, you have still got to deliver the performances and beat the rest of the grid. And absolutely, things like good or bad luck may have a bigger bearing on the eventual result. As Ocon said, with fewer races, there isn't the space to be making mistakes. I suppose basically there's less time to recover from any DNFs. But that wouldn't mean that the eventual 2020 world champion wouldn't be a worthy world champion. Of course, that is just my take, but what do you guys think? Do you agree that any world champion is a worthy world champion? Or do you perhaps believe that winning a title across fewer races is less of an achievement? You can, as ever, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Genuinely interested to hear what you guys have got to say on this one. It is an interesting topic. And finally, a little bit of good news. Charles Leclerc and Nico Rosberg have both been doing their bit to help people during the current global crisis. In between streaming on Twitch, Leclerc has been helping the Red Cross in Monaco, and the Ferrari driver has been assisting with the delivery of meals to the elderly and vulnerable, as well as being involved in delivering equipment to the Princess Grace Hospital Centre. And on top of all of that, he has also been raising money for charities over on Twitch. Meanwhile, YouTuber and 2016 world champion Nico Rosberg has offered to help someone out over on Twitter. Now, the German learned via social media that one of his fans was having difficulties getting to the shops and so offered to pay £500 for a food delivery. And that's a move that left his fan floored by his kindness. Do you know, with everything that's going on right now in the world, it really is these little things that can make such a huge difference to some people's lives. I've got to say, well done, Nico. He deserves all the praise he's getting for that move, as does Charles Leclerc for what he's doing, and every driver for the part they're playing as well. That is it, though, for this video. You can let me know your thoughts on any of the stories featured today down in the comment section. And don't forget to let me know if you think that a shorter season would make winning a World Championship in 2020 less of an achievement. Now, I will be back soon with more content as ever, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can, of course, follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching, and I will catch you again in the next one. Bye-bye.